woodpecker. I wanted to make a short video wishing you all a happy new year. I don't have anything particularly illuminating or deep in this video. Think of this as a kind of warm-up for what's to come here in the near future. After all, I think this is the longest I've went without making a video in the 5 years that I've had this channel. So I'm a little rusty, but I wanted to wish you all a happy new year. And I hope y'all had a wonderful Yuletide and a Merry Christmas, and you got to spend it with your families. 2024 was an interesting and wild year. Many things happened. There was the typical, here in America, we follow this sort of frenetic and outright schizophrenic 4-year election cycle. So we had to deal with that. Helene washed away parts of Appalachia, southern Appalachia. And there were many events that transpired across the world. And 2025, I'm not here to make any predictions. I'm not here to try to provide you with a forecast. I'm actually not all that worried about what's going on outside of my sphere of control and influence. I'm just going to keep focusing on myself, my family, my community, and my people. Things that I wouldn't say I have control over by any means, but things that I can influence, no matter how small that little bit of influence could be. That's what I'm going to focus on. I've got some ideas for content. Me and my friends like to joke around and call it content. One of the things I'm going to talk about here in the future, well, some of them are, I'm going to talk a little bit about geopolitical things. I'm going to talk about matriarchy and Appalachia. I'm also going to talk about plans, personal plans. Well, maybe they're not my own plans, but things that perhaps we could do that is often overlooked. That'll be a couple months down the road or so. I'm going to make an extension of an old video I made back in 2022 called The Syndicate. I have refined a lot of my ideas that I put forth almost 2.5 years ago. I'm also going to make a video talking about the labor struggle in this country and its history. Especially right now with the atmosphere regarding the H-1B visas and legal, elite, human capital immigration. I have been quite critical of capitalism the last couple of years. In fact, as I've often said, I've started to think that perhaps capitalism is even more detrimental to our people and their future than even horrific communism. When I interviewed Pete Quinones last year, came onto my stream, we were talking about the differences between West Germany and East Germany. And he mentioned something that has stuck with me. He said, as we were talking about this in the discussion, he said that he had heard this saying that was said often over there, that in East Germany, behind the Iron Curtain, they would take your body. But in West Germany, they would take your soul. And I believe this is true. I've talked to some people that grew up in East Germany. And it's weird. In East Germany, a sort of sense of nationalism. And in a weird way, it was preserved compared to how things were in NATO countries. Western-aligned countries. But anyways, I want to talk about the labor struggle, because the labor struggle was extremely racial in this country back in the 1800s and through the early 1900s. And then it became co-opted into sort of the broader left wing, which I've really grown to hate the whole left-right dichotomy. I'm kind of beyond all that. And I believe there's a lot of people who feel the same way I do regarding that. So I want to talk about the labor struggle. I want to talk about the IWW. I want to talk about Tom Metzger and a man named John Jewell. And I want to talk about Jack London. I want to talk about the Molly Maguires. I want to talk about all these things, because this is a part of history that's often overlooked. You know, it was like this weird sort of restructuring of the left-wing, right-wing dichotomy that happened in the 20th century, where, you know, I'm serious, I find myself growing more socialistic over time. You know, somehow, like, conservative values got transfixed onto the more capitalistic side of this economic dichotomy, and I think those contradictions are being shown right now with what Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, people like Patrick Bet-David, all these people, with the things that they've said. I think they have heightened the differences, the contradictions. They have highlighted them. And I think more people are starting to come to the conclusions that I started to reach a couple of years ago. I want to talk about the labor struggle, because it's very important. You know, Tom Metzger he's my favorite figure in this cause, historical figure. Him and Louis Beam. And as far as thought leaders and personalities go, they're my two favorite figures. And Metzger himself had said that there was a rivalry between him and William Luther Pierce. Pierce called him that dirty little Bolshevik because Tom Metzger advocated for the white working class. Pierce was more elitist. And while I value what Pierce had to say on many things, he was a very intelligent man, I think Metzger was actually a much more... Metzger was the kind of guy I would go to a bar and have a beer with and sing some karaoke with. I couldn't really see Pierce being that kind of person. Metzger was a really good man too. He was a family man. And he knew how to talk to people. So I'm on Metzger's side. Rest in peace. So that's something I'm going to talk about. Something that'll be coming here in the near future. I'm going to have to do some further research on it. I did quite a bit of research on this topic over the last couple of years. And I'll put a link to a stream below that I did with my Irish friend, Betwixt, on his channel. There was a few of us. Blackbird 9 was there, and God forgive me, I cannot recall the other Irishman's name that was with us, but it was a movie review, and I tackled, it was about the Fast Food Nation movie that came out all those years ago. And what I wanted to talk about was the labor struggle. So I've got some notes already, things put together. I'll put a link to that stream in the box below. But anyways, New Year's resolutions. Do I have any New Year's resolutions? No. I don't make New Year's resolutions. I never have really been big on it. You know, I don't think... I hear people make these resolutions. Some people want to go to a gym, work out, lose weight, do this or that. They may stick to it a week, 2, maybe a month, and then they just fall back and they fail. And I don't really make New Year's resolutions because of this. I don't think true change comes from a calendar date, an arbitrary period of time. True change either comes from personal cataclysm or impending personal cataclysm, or perhaps divine inspiration as well. But you know, I don't affix a sort of I don't affix change to just, like I said, some random date on the calendar. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because it's working. I'm getting what I want, and I'm getting what I need on a personal level out of this life. And I'm going to keep winning. I'm going to keep doing that. I may tweak some things, but I will do that when the time arrives. I'm not sitting here instituting these minor adjustments right now. So, if you did want to make a resolution, what I would make is to help, and it's to serve. What do I mean by this? Well, let me tell you a story real quick. You know, I drive a truck for a living. Go in the morning, load it up, and I run my route down in Georgia. I have a co-worker. He is a few years younger than me. He has a big family. And me and him have gotten to know each other the past 3 years. And it was a couple of years ago, we were loading up our trucks that morning, and some days he's in the spot next to me, so we shoot the shit. And I looked down and I seen that he was wearing shoes that were literally held together by duct tape. I knew this guy had been having trouble financially. He had a child, a daughter, from a previous marriage. And it was astounding to me just how much money they took out for child support. They fucked him. The courts absolutely fucked him. He showed me his check one time. He'd worked 40 hours, and after child support, he didn't even have $50. And I seen him in those duct tape shoes, and I was like, holy shit, man. Is that the only pair of shoes you got? And he's like, yeah, that's all I got right now. And I made a mental note of that. And I ran my route. I went to the ATM after that, and I pulled out $100. And that next morning, I gave it to him. And he refused it at first. And I was like, dude, use this to go get you a decent pair of shoes. You know, I hate shit like that. Someone working that hard and ain't even got the damn money to, you know, for a decent pair of shoes to work so hard in. I hate that shit. I hate seeing things like that. I helped him. And you know, over time, there was one time shortly after that, I heard him talking about that he had written a paper on anarcho-capitalism. And I was not expecting this guy to say this. He is of Ulster Scot heritage. He knows quite a bit about his family's history. He's from a very isolated rural community in North Georgia, a mountain community. We're of the same blood, definitely. That's why one of the reasons I wanted to help him. He's got a young son. He's doing all he can. And I think, thankfully, he's getting his child support situation worked on to where they're not screwing him so much. And I mean, he has a relationship with his daughter from that previous marriage. I've actually met her before. He takes care of her. You know, it's not one of these situations where he's a deadbeat father that don't have nothing to do with her. He takes care of her and his son, his young son. So I hate seeing things like that, though. And you know, I'm not telling this story to brag. And I was going to say this. He was talking about anarcho-capitalism. And me and him talk about a lot of these things. And although our politics do not line up, what I do talk about with him is where we have common ground. He's probably more of an anarchist. I know that day he mentioned that paper about anarcho-capitalism. I told him that I was a racist communist. He got quite a kick out of that. So, you know, he's not quite where we are. And I'm not trying to convert this guy, but I like talking to him because he does have a knowledge of some interesting things. And maybe he might come to some of the conclusions that we have one day if he was given the right information, but that's up to him. But I care for him because he's my blood, like I said. And you know, I'm not telling you this story to brag, but over the last few years, I've sent a lot of money to people. Even at my own, I'm not going to say peril, because I'm not a wealthy man by any means, but I'm getting by. I have sent a lot of money. It is, if I had to guess, it's way up in the thousands. That's a big deal for me because, like I said, I'm not a wealthy man. But I like to help people. You know, I'm not into the whole grift culture thing. I don't ever want to take a dime for any of this. I like to do this because I love it. And I want to provide solutions. And there's not many content creators I've ever sent money, because I'm pretty selective about it. But if you are watching this and you're one of those content creators that I've sent something, you better believe that I believe in what you're doing. I've helped a lot of common people, though. People back home. Because I believe and I understand how it is. I know how hard things are. And I mean, I'm not sitting here saying I've sent some life-changing amount of money. It ain't nothing like that. Maybe it's just something to help them to get through the week or to get through the month. You know, because I know how it is. I mean, if you would have seen me 7 years ago, I was about a broken man. I think 2017 was my personal equivalent of the year 536 AD for the European man, which I'd brought all these things upon myself, of course. But I was nearly a broken man back in 2017. So I know how it is. So if you want to make a resolution, it would be to help your brothers and your sister. Help them out. It don't have to be financially. Help people that's around you and in your community. You're like me. I know most of yous are like me. We ain't wealthy, but you can help with things. And helping with things builds bonds. It builds a connection. And that's what we need. Of course, you need to be careful with who you help, because believe you me, there are, unfortunately, parasites out there who will try to take advantage of the angels of our better nature. So keep that in mind. but look for ways that you can help and that you can serve. If there's a New Year's resolution that I think is valid, that's probably the most valid one I can think of. But anyways, I didn't mean to ramble on so long. I hope y'all have a wonderful year, and I hope it treats you well. And to keep working and focusing and driving towards what you want and to what you need to get out of this mortal coil. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.